So for our OAQPS keynote, we have Anna Wood, who's EPA is in the Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards. She's the director of the Outreach and Information Division. And she's going to be given some updates from her program and how they work with us and small businesses. So Anna, if you're all set, take it away.
Thank you, Lisa. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. We don't see your video yet, but it might just take a moment.
Okay. Let me know when you can see the video. I do have it on.
Yeah, it's looking like it's doing that same thing that Doug's did, where it takes a moment to actually show the video.
And then while that's waiting, will someone be advancing my slides because I see them already up on the screen, or how will that work, please?
I believe it. Nancy, are you advancing the slides?
I definitely am.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy.
You bet. I'm not sure. Let's see, Anna. It appears your camera is on, but I'm not seeing you either. Let me stop sharing and we'll get your camera on, and then I will share the screen again.
Okay.
There we go. That's great. I'm going to share your slides now, and it could be a function. We should be able to see you, but if your video does go away or it gets covered up, it could be a function of you just not sharing and I'm sharing on top of you. So we'll just have to go with your slides at that point.
Okay. All right.
Try that again.
Okay.
Okay,
Hi.
looks good.
Can you see me? Yeah.
Yep, we can see you. Looks good.
Okay, great. Well, hi, everybody. It's so good to be here, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share with you what we are doing at OAQPS on our efforts to kind of reinvigorate our small business program. It's good to see we have so many participants, and like Doug, I just want to thank you for all the work that you do on the small business front, and we really want to be your partner in that endeavor, and the information I'll be sharing today will hopefully help you envision how we see that happening as we move forward. But before I get started, I have to say, if you had told me 6 months ago that I'd be on a Zoom call sharing by video and using slides, I would have laughed, mainly because this whole technology realm is very new, at least for me, and I'm just amazed at, notwithstanding when we all can't be together, we can still kind of be together. So it's really great to be here with you today. So what I'm going to cover, moving to the next slide, is really just talk to you about who we are in the Outreach and Information Division. As mentioned, I'm the division director for that division, and talk to you about some of the foundations that we've been laying to really the groundwork to improve our processes for stakeholder outreach as a general matter, but with regard to small business programs or small businesses and our small business program in particular, and talk to you what that means as we move into our efforts to really revitalize our small business program. I was going to talk about next steps and break for questions there, but hearing that we're going to hold questions to the end, I'll just note that, and we can come to that towards the end. And then, well, I thought we had some time together, I'll note a couple of other things that we're doing that you might find interesting, two of which I think definitely have implications for small businesses, and one that we are sort of another area we're making new investments in and sort of modernizing that is just generally important to the public at large as we see some of the things happening with air quality and wildfires in our communities. So with that, what I'll do first is talk to you a little bit on the next slide about the Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards Outreach and Information Division. We're about 48 people or so in our division, and our mission is to improve air quality and public health through data management, outreach, and education. We have 4 groups in the division, and they're listed here on the slide. I'll give you a really high-level snapshot of what they do, and then I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the Community and Tribal Programs group, because that's the group where a lot of our small business work is being led out of, and so I'll talk about that in a minute. But just to give you sort of an overview of what the division does, our Community and Tribal Programs group really focuses on community engagement, including environmental justice, also tribal engagement, and outreach to small businesses. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. The other information transfer group that we have, I don't know how many of you are familiar with AirNow. There's a snapshot of it on the slide there, but that is where we make air quality information publicly available so that people can access that and know what's happening in their community. And when you have what's going on now with these wildfires in California, those types of resources are particularly valuable and helpful to the public. And we also, out of that group, do our RegNav tool, which is where we try to put in place a sort of a guided way to work through a particular regulation to provide that as a resource to, it could be for small businesses, it could be for generally the regulated community that may be trying to navigate a particular regulation. The third group is our National Air Data Group, and they basically do all of our air quality data system, big data systems and support, which help drive a lot of the programs and inform a lot of the programs in OAQPS as we move forward. And a lot of these we do in partnership, obviously, with states and locals and tribes, because they're the ones that have the data and are sharing it with us through the system that is out there in the US. And then last but not least, I know you heard earlier in the week from Adam Baumgart-Getz, who is our group leader for the Innovative Programs and Outreach Group, and that is our efforts to do sort of a national air pollution training program, and also Burnwise, which is sort of a voluntary partnership-based initiative that I'll be talking about briefly, because it's an example of how partnerships can really help advance public health protection and also sharing and collaboration to improve some of the regulations and the implementation of the regulations that we have. So I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the Community and Tribal Programs group. That group, really their sole focus is to work with tribes, EJ communities, and small businesses to really help strengthen those relationships and provide information, education, and outreach so that we can better protect public health and the environment. We have been really, that is something that group is quite known for and has been working in that realm for quite some time. And our goal is to always be continuously improving how we work so that we are efficient and effective in collaborating not only with states, tribes, and locals, communities, small businesses, and other partners, but also other federal agencies so that we can all work better, to help address existing pollution and prevent future problems. This is also where the OAQPS Small Business Program is the home to, and that's something I'm going to talk about in the next couple of slides. And before I get into that, I wanted to give a shout out to Rhonda Wright, who is kind of my lifeline today on the call with me, because she's been doing a tremendous effort to really get the Small Business Program up and revitalized and running. And I'm just so delighted to be able to share that work with you and the work that she's been doing with others in OAQPS, and I know with many of you as well. And then the other thing that group does is we really want to make sure we're developing new strategies for effective outreach and engagement. A great example is with COVID. We've had to reinvent how we are working with communities and sharing information and making sure they have what they need to effectively engage, and that includes small businesses to participate in any rulemakings that may have implications for their communities, their businesses, and where they live. So that's just kind of a snapshot about the Community and Tribal Program Group and its connection to the Small Business Program. So as I mentioned before, when we started out doing this, we thought, well, we really need to better understand, what's happening in terms of how effective are we being in terms of improving outreach and engagement for tribes, EJ communities, and small businesses. And so many of the senior folks at EPA, including OAQPS, had to have what we called a problem statement that we were going to apply sort of a lean management system approach to. And the one that was the focus for the Outreach and Information Division was really how do we improve the process from the start of a regulatory action to its conclusion to ensure that we have effective engagement with small businesses, tribes, and EJ communities. And so just to give you a sense, the problem statement was that in 2018, OAQPS engaged effectively in about 64% of the rulemakings that come out of OAQPS. And OAQPS puts out a pretty significant number of rules each year. And the goal was to really try to meet our statutory and executive order obligations more fully and timely and consistently. And the goal was by September 2020, we were targeting effective engagement in 80% of the regulations where we saw implications for these particular stakeholder groups. And I'm delighted to say that we are actually now at over 90%. We put in place after sort of diagnosing what the current system was, what needed to be improved, and how could we deliver better outreach materials and work more closely and collaborate with our other divisions within OAQPS on these rulemakings to actually help rule implementation, and looking to see how do we get better at that. And part of what we did was to make sure that we had an internal team structure across all 5 OAQPS divisions, and that we had a well-defined process in place so that there were no surprises on rulemakings. We know well in advance what's coming. We can start thinking much earlier in the process about what does effective engagement mean for that particular regulatory action, and then start reaching out earlier to make sure that we are doing that. And 2 examples that we have recently where we got out pre-proposal, and we hope to continue this trend and talk to EJ communities, tribes, and small businesses was on the 1 bromo propane rule, the 1 BP rule, if you've heard of that. And the second one that we did actually at proposal was with the other solid waste incineration rule. And we've gotten out and done those early, much earlier in the process than we've ever done before. So we hope to continue with that and connecting and improving our training and our outreach with our state partners, small businesses, and other stakeholders that are impacted by the regulatory actions. And that will include building capacity for risk communication and community engagement. So moving on to the next slide. What does it mean from OAQPS's perspective to revitalize OAQPS's small business program? We had a really active program in the 1990s and the early 2000s. As you guys are well aware, I know on your agenda earlier, there was a discussion about Section 507 of the Clean Air Act and what that requires. And while we had really invested quite a bit in those timeframes I mentioned, over the years, that investment kind of declined. And so what we're looking at now is to really step in and partner in a more proactive way with small businesses with the goals of really building strong working relationships through better communication and collaboration and sharing earlier and as appropriate on regulatory actions, building an infrastructure to reestablish and support the small business program, and develop products and technical assistance that we know would be of use and value to the stakeholders that we serve on the rules that are coming out of OAQPS, and in particular small businesses. And so that's kind of what it means to us, and that's something that Rhonda and folks in OAQPS have been really working on, and we expect to continue with that commitment to do that moving forward. So what is it? The small business program from OAQPS's perspective. What does that mean to us as we think about reinvigorating that and revitalizing it? We really have sort of stepped back and thought about, well, what is it that we think the program needs to be focusing on, and there are 3 areas that we are really kind of focused. One is, as I mentioned before, building the strong working relationships between OAQPS and others that have that are interested in working with small businesses and small businesses themselves, building that infrastructure I just mentioned, and then the technical resources. And so we want to be kind of a one-stop shop for small businesses where they can come and get information and tools and training about the rules that impact them. And so that's a big area of focus with those 3 sort of cornerstones I just mentioned in mind. We have sort of put forward a strategic plan, and that is something that we are talking internally with folks at EPA. We're speaking with all of our regional air directors last week, and we have made a request of them to please identify a person in each region that can serve as a regional air small business liaison, and we're getting very positive feedback on that, and we look forward to having that reestablished because it had kind of fallen by the wayside over the years. And so we've already started doing that. As I mentioned on the 1BP and the OSWE rule, we've begun getting out there and providing engagement earlier and information and trainings and that sort of thing. And we expect to continue to do that. So that goes into sort of the capacity building and the education component. We also want to look more closely at some of the tools we have, like RegNav, which is an online interactive tool to help small businesses and other industries determine what might be required under particular regulation. And then we're actually planning on rolling out a new RegNav for Part 6H, which is the niche app for paint stripping and miscellaneous surface coating operations for area sources. And then, as I said, take all of this great work that's going on in building these relationships, getting the resources out there, and develop a web page where people can go for a one-stop shop for information on small businesses for the actions in OAQPS. So that's kind of what our target is and what our goals are around the small business program. So the next steps, as I mentioned, we are talking internally and externally on program goals and strategies with folks, and just, and today we welcome any thoughts you might have based upon what you're hearing about our efforts for the small business program. We are continuing to implement, as a result of the lean management exercise that we did, the continuous engagement with rule writers across OAQPS. I participated in what we call a huddle yesterday, and I have to tell you, I was really impressed with everybody coming together and sharing information that's helping us be able to plan and better support what the impacts might be on small businesses and make sure we're doing outreach and engagement in a meaningful and appropriate way. And then that Kaizen effort will also ensure that we are much more consistent, and instead of being at 64%, our goal is to be at 100% to making sure we're effectively engaging the small businesses. So that's kind of where we are on the small business front. I've got, I think on my opening slide, I had other important stuff. So this is the other important stuff part of the conversation. And so I'm just going to touch on a couple of things just to make sure that you're aware of them in case you might find it interesting or helpful. One is our Burnwise program, and that is a voluntary education and outreach program that really is directed at reducing PM and HAP emissions, primarily from wood stoves, hydronic heaters, and fireplaces. Really, the key message to wood burners and the public is actually using these particular types of sources. And the message to the wood burners is to really burn the right wood the right way in the right appliance. And so it's really a collaborative effort between the wood stove manufacturers, the retailers, and the public to really make sure that we are utilizing the technology in a way that really promotes cleaner burning technologies and realizes the benefits that some of this new technology can deliver. And so, you know, the challenge, of course, is working with retailers and wood stove manufacturers and millions of homeowners to get out the message and to help them understand what is needed to help burn cleaner. And so what we do in the Burnwise program is we have, you know, we do a lot of messaging and have a lot of partnerships through the Burnwise program. And on the next slide, you'll see a little bit of this, where we really work with people to make sure that that they know what it means to burn the right wood the right way and the right appliance. And we work not only with, as I said, the manufacturers on the regulatory side, but we work very closely with the retailers, and we actually use chimney sweeps that go out and service these types of sources in people's homes to make sure that they can help deliver our message. And it's really been an amazing program to watch it develop and grow, and our partnerships with the states have been really, really important in helping us do that. And so we recognize the value of that, and certainly will apply that in the small business context, but wanted to share this approach with you in case you would find it interesting. And if you want to find more resources that might be helpful, you can go ahead and look at those particular resources that are noted on that page when you have some free time. And then the next thing, two more things I'm going to touch on, and then I want to make sure we have some time for questions. I think this is very quickly because Adam was talking to you, I think, earlier this week. The other significant area of investment that we're making is in rebuilding the National Air Quality Training Program. That program, you know, came into being, you know, after the 90 amendments in the early 2000s, and really is quite outdated, and the content is kind of outdated as well, but the technology in particular is very outdated. And so we're really focused on redesigning that whole program and using modern, what we know now about, you know, online learning, blended learning, more modern ways of communicating information so that we're able to not only provide in-class materials, but also virtual materials. And particularly with COVID, it's been extremely important. It has driven home for us the importance of being able to do that, and the old system, you know, really isn't up for the job. So we're redesigning the air quality curricula. We're deploying the new learning management system. We've got about 150 courses that need to be updated. In the last 4 or 5 years, I think we updated one course. In the last 2 years, we've updated 10 courses, and then we're going to be ramping up to 20 courses a year and 22 and beyond. And then we're going to have an ongoing plan to make sure that that program does not fall into being so outdated, and we continue to take advantage of developments in technology for a more modern and user-friendly learning management system. And this is something that we think, if going on to the next slide, is just a snapshot of some curriculum examples in terms of the types of curriculum that we have, just to give you a flavor for it. But for example, air pollution basics, you know, some of these could be of interest to small businesses. And so as we move forward, we're thinking of, you know, our focus right now is providing state, local, and tribal air quality professionals what they need to be able to do their jobs and understand, you know, what is out there in terms of information and learning around air quality and air quality pollution control and protection. But as we go forward, we're going to be thinking about how can we make sure that we're being mindful of small business needs as well, and taking that into consideration. So I'm very excited about that as well. And then the last thing I'm going to touch on, you know, not a great strong connection with small businesses, but it's something that's really important. AirNow is sort of a flagship program for OAQPS, and it's where the public goes and to get their information that's provided by state, local, and tribal air agencies that have monitors in their community, and it tells them for PM and ozone what the air quality in their area is. The site crashed a couple years ago because of very high volume due to the 2018 California Camp Fire wildfires, and so we spent the last couple of years redesigning a mobile-friendly site that went live this past April. and it has a number of updated features that are available for each area that reports, and then it allows the users to explore monitors in local areas near them. If you want to see a home video that Phil Dickerson, who's the group leader for that, when we launched that, you can see that YouTube link right there. And then most recently, we have we're doing a pilot right now, which is fire maps and air quality sensor data, and correlating that data, for example, purple air data for handheld sensors with the federal monitoring sites that we have already out there. So we're very, very excited about the launch. I just checked the stats today. We're at about 80% of the volume right now that we saw 2 years ago with the California campfire wildfires, because of the extreme fires that are happening in California. And so far, the website is holding up well, and we're monitoring it very closely, but we just wanted to make you aware of that. And then on the next slide is one last thing, and then I'll want to make sure you have contacts in case you want any information on any of this. The other thing that we did is we had an AirNow app, which had fallen really out of, we hadn't updated it in quite some time. And we realized the world has changed so much that most people get their information through their iPhones. And so we just relaunched an updated app, and we've done a spring update, which we've now completed, and we're going to be doing a phased approach to update the app further. But right now, you can actually download the app. You can save areas that you're interested in air quality. You can get daily forecasts. You'll get actions to plan your day messages, and a lot of useful information to make sure that when you're out and about, and particularly if you're in some of these areas with wildfires, you have some help to help you better understand how to protect yourself and your family when you're out and about. And then later this summer and early fall, we want to add an air quality map and a fire and smoke information overlay, and then make sure we can provide real-time alerts for users that have saved particular locations. So last slide, we're in the home stretch here. Again, a shout out to Rhonda, who's on the call with me and can help on any small business related program questions. But if you also have any questions about AirNow, there are our program contact there. John White for the training program. You met Adam earlier this week. And then if you have questions about the Burnwise program, Larry Brockman is our program manager for that. So with that, I will stop and see if we have any questions people have that we can answer, or whatever would be useful. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Anna. Nancy, do we have any questions?
We do have a few questions here, Anna. And Jennifer asks, how are you measuring engagement? And this came in about the first third of your slides. So what she's specifically asking about, what does the difference between a 60% engagement over a 90% engagement look like?
And Rhonda, do you want to handle that? I'm afraid I might not do it justice if I do it.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Morning to others. So as Anna mentioned before, we were engaged with small businesses some years back, and then it kind of declined, and so we're getting back. And so some of the ways that we are measuring how we are engaging with our stakeholders, not just small businesses, but tribes and EJ, through the ELMS process that Anna mentioned, the Kaizen event, we are keeping track of all of the outreach that all of the programs we're working on. For example, we're keeping a spreadsheet of how many emails that we contact our stakeholders, how many trainings we do, how many conference calls we provide. The trainings, webinars could be face-to-face back when we could do face-to-face trainings, and as well as virtual trainings. So we're keeping a spreadsheet for all of the EJ, tribes, and small business outreach that we are doing on all of the rules. so we're keeping a track of it, and based off of what we're seeing is that we are more engaged, and based also through the Kaizen event, we also came up with some processes where we can better engage with our stakeholders. And so we're keeping track of everything that we're doing and how often we're doing it to see the benefit, see how it's benefiting our stakeholders. We're also getting responses from our stakeholders. Some of you have graciously emailed me back when I've sent out emails or provided trainings. You have graciously emailed me back to say, hey, this was a great training. Thank you for these emails. These are very helpful. We are keeping track of those as well. We appreciate those type of emails because it let us know that what we are doing is not in vain. So I hope that answers that question.
I think that does. And so it seems like there's some parallels there that we should make sure we're sharing with you with regard to our annual report, because it might be good for you to see all the different data points that the states then are reporting. I realize just so that you can see what's happening kind of at the state level, that is, somewhat mirroring your effort as well.
May I add on to what Rhonda shared too? Because I think it's another facet of the question that was being asked. If Rhonda, if you mentioned this, please holler. But just would be worth mentioning. So, in addition to doing the tracking and so forth, these triages or these huddles that I mentioned that happen every, at least maybe every other week. I'm not, I only attend one probably at a time, but I know they meet much more frequently and regularly.
Every week. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking you guys are meeting every week. I only do it like once a month or something, but I know there's a huddle all the time. But one of the things we're doing is, talking about the 64% to the 80%. Our goal was to make sure that, if we're at 90%, that means we've looked at 90% of the rules that are coming out of OAQPS, and we've done an assessment of what is the appropriate level of engagement, right? And it could be an email, it could be something more involved, it could be an informational webinar, and I mentioned 2 informational webinars that we've done recently for 1BP and the OSWI rule. And so this means that for some actions in previous years, we did not even do any outreach or do any kind of assessment to see what was appropriate for engagement purposes. And that's now changing, and we're putting in place a system and processes that make sure we are collaborating across all of our divisions so that we know everything that's coming out of OAQPS, and we've made a conscious decision about this requires this or that or the other.
Yes, we were known for, coming out as the comment period being our way of engaging. And what we're trying to do now is do more pre-proposal engagement, making sure that you are aware of what's coming down the pipe so that by the time the comment period opens, you are well aware of the rules, have a good understanding as much as possible so that when it's time to comment, you'll be able to and know how to.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I know you have done a great job of sharing with our main listserv, and then from there, people are sharing it further to their stakeholders. So thank you very much for that. The next question is asking about the small business plan that added small business to community and tribal programs that Rhonda said was under an internal review and then just approved. And so the question was, kind of what is the specific plan for small businesses?
So I think Anna did mention that in her slides. She laid out the goals that we have identified in the plan and some of the activities that we intend to do in the plan. And the question also referred to, did we work with the OSTBU office? Yes, Paula and I, who's the ombudsman, as you know, we have been in communication, but of course, as the strategic plan was being drafted, there were a lot that we could not share until they got approved by my office. And so back in August, on August 3rd, I believe, we were able to brief my office director, Peter Siragotis, and gave him a layout of what we intend to do with the small business program. And as a result of that, he was very pleased with what he was seeing, and he gave us the green light to go ahead and start implementing some of those actions. That included reaching out to the regional air directors for point of contacts. I did see there's another question here by Paula, if Anna could elaborate a little bit more about the regional point of contacts that we just recently did. So I can turn it over to you, Anna.
So yeah, there was a question that said, can Anna talk about the new regional air small business rule? This is great and worth repeating, and the question came in anonymously. So if you could share some more about that, Anna?
Yeah, and I'll ask Rhonda to chime in as well. So I think when Rhonda and the team did an assessment, we only had maybe 2 of our 10 regions that still had small business liaisons. And as you know, EPA went through a reorg, and when that reorg happened, a lot of times the people that might have been fulfilling that role got reassigned somewhere else. And so one of the things that we realized is that we need to work with our partners in the regions to make sure that we have a way to connect with each of you and in the states, because you all are closest and know more about what is needed in those for the small businesses in those areas. So we've asked them to give us a contact. We expect that they'll be using maybe a certain percentage of their time to work with us and start collaborating and coordinating and being more connected to the work that we're doing in OAQPS and with small businesses and with the Office of Environmental Justice. I know Rhonda is thinking about other ways to have a virtual meeting with, there'll be regular, probably monthly meetings with them to keep them informed about what's happening and what OAQPS is doing and get their input, but also probably a more lengthy, maybe full day meeting where we're talking about, how do we move forward, given that we're just kind of forming or reforming, if you will, our efforts for small businesses and connecting with the region. So I hope that that's helpful.
Yes.
And Rhonda, if I left any important, please, because you're the guru here.
No, you're doing great. So the plan is the strategic plan that was drafted is currently going to be reviewed through. So once we can get the regional point of contacts, I will have a work group meeting with the regions, as well as the Ombudsman's office and some other offices within EPA. And then together we will have an internal meeting of the plan, making sure that EPA is on one accord on how we want to move forward. It's very important that we have that internal review first, so that when we do come and bring that plan to the small businesses, we can say, this is EPA's plan from the air office, leading out of our office. So once we have that internal review, and that's going to involve, that might take some time, because that's going to involve us, one, making sure that we have the point of contacts from the regions. Then we're going to have some work group calls. Then we're going to have a workshop with the regions to make sure that they have the chance to have their voices heard and provide input into the strategic plan. Once all of that is done, then we would bring that plan to the SBEAPs and give you an opportunity to review and provide input as well.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm in Region 7, and so I'm one of the regions that has been fortunate enough to have a liaison for as long as I've been here. And we do use our liaison, but we probably only use them, maybe throughout the whole year. It might take 40 hours of their work. Surely there's some behind the scenes, but it is a small amount that goes a long way for our program. So I just want to emphasize that from personal experience for about 20 years. I also want to share that on our website. Rhonda, I'll get this to you. We did put together, Lisa led the effort to put together a document of potential RSBL regional small business liaison, RSBL role and duties. And so it's kind of a list. And so we should share that with you too, in case you haven't seen that.
Sure, thank you.
You bet. I'm just making some notes here. We'll get those things to you. They're on our website, but we'll send them directly to you. So another question, there's a couple of comments about AirNow, but I'll get to that in just a second. we've got about 7 minutes, 6, 7 minutes. So this is great that we can take this much time for questions. So those regulatory navigation tools are so important to small businesses and to us as technical assistance providers. And so we know that the 6H, there's efforts under 6H. I know in our region, we would love to see something for 6X. We have a lot more sources with 6X. I'll just put a plug in. A lot more sources under 6X who are not compliant or don't understand, or because there are 5 processes that are regulated, and it can be kind of confusing. It's easy to identify the sources through their NAICS or SICs, but to identify applicability is kind of tricky. So just a little plug-in on 6X. Tony asks, can we assist you in developing material prior to the rule proposal or the final rule? If we develop training programs such as for individual NESHAP rules, would you be willing to incorporate them? If so, what will the process be for getting this approved or possibly getting it funded, I would add. You're on mute, Anna.
Sorry, my dog was barking. I muted it. The joys of working at home. We would very much look forward to collaborating with you all and others and talking more a little bit about this. The only thing I would say is that we have to be mindful of any legal constraints that we might have in terms of what can be shared in advance, but I think it would be good to explore what people are thinking and see if there's a way that we can do this that can help manage whatever those other considerations are, but with the needs of what people would find useful.
Awesome. We would welcome the opportunity to brainstorm on that. That would be great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So now on to AirNow. A question comes in. I posted the AirNow mobile to Facebook earlier this summer and included actions small businesses can take to protect air quality. I would suggest including the National Weather Service smoke forecast, the AQI forecast is not accurate. Our area is impacted, and this is from Belinda in Idaho. Our area is impacted from wildfire smoke every summer. We just moved from yellow to orange in the last hour. So she's making a suggestion.
Yes, and I appreciate that, and we're aware of, I think, the issue that you're trying to highlight, and we are looking at how we can better manage that so that we get more real-time data for people.
Great. And just on AirNow, I'll just say if it's airnow.gov, I believe. I was just on it last night. I've been on it 2-3 times. I have friends on the West Coast and family that's traveling there wanting to hike. And so it is a great resource if you've got a runner, if you've got outdoor activity, you're going into an area. I have used it many, many times, and I didn't realize there was an app, but I've used it mobile as well as on my laptop. So I can't help promote that enough. It is a very good resource, you know, just for residents as well. One more question, Anna or Rhonda. First, thank you for the news about the RSBLs at every region. Do you have a timeline when headquarters or our region will be contacting the states in the region? The RSBL role is even more critical now because of COVID. As you discussed, small businesses drive the economy. Thank you for sharing your strategic planning.
Anna, you want me to tackle that, or you?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what's happening, but a lot of that was breaking up for me. If other people are having the same issue. So Rhonda, if you heard the question.
Sure. The question was, first they want to thank you for the RSBL's contact in the regions, and then they want to know the timeline that headquarters, when headquarters will contact the states in their region. The timeline that we have right now, we did ask that the regional air directors to give us a point of contact by the 25th of this month. It's not a hard deadline, but that's the request that we put out there. Again, I must emphasize that there will be an internal review of the strategic plan within EPA, the offices within EPA, before we will reach out to the states. What we wanted to do here was to give you an idea of the efforts that and the plans that we're trying to issue to better support the small business program. Once we get the regional contacts, then we will start having work group calls and work group meetings with regional input. And I think we can better give you more information on when we can bring information to the states once we start having those meetings. But right now, we just wanted to let you know that we heard your cry for having regional support. And so we're doing everything that we can to get some regional contacts. I do want to emphasize, though, one of the things that we've heard from the SBEAPs is that you're looking for multimedia contacts. Us being an air office, we can only request air contacts. You know, we can't go out and asking for contacts from the water office and what have you. But so that's why you probably hear us in our strategic plan where we have requested air regional small business liaisons. So I just want to make sure I emphasize that, so there won't be any expectations that these liaisons can do more than just air. They may, but we haven't made that request.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Anna and Rhonda. We really appreciate you sharing all of this with us today. We really look forward to continuing to build this relationship again. We really appreciate all of your efforts in working to, rebuild our working relationship, and especially your efforts to get us regional contacts is something that is so incredibly important for our programs. So we are so happy to have you guys working on that for us, and we really appreciate all the work that you've been doing, and it's really been great to work with you. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Anna, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. I just wanted to just say thank you, and also just again to acknowledge Rhonda, because she has been a force of nature around all of this. Thank you all for having us and allowing us to share with you what we're doing, and appreciated your questions and suggestions. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right.